Me and B Rob are super close. Lockers right next to each other, so I get to see him. I get to be around him all the time, and then obviously on the field. But B Rob's someone I've been cool with since I first got here. Someone who's from Tuscaloosa, who has been in the program for a while. And when I first got here, he was someone who was always super cool with me. Someone who was super welcoming when I was just a freshman. That means a lot to me. For him, last year being here as long as he did, he didn't have to, go out of his way to make sure I was good and to look out for me as just a freshman. But he made a priority to do that, and that's always meant a lot for me. Not just in football but in life.
It means everything is so much fun. I have to give those guys a lot of credit because they give me so much energy when I watch them play. Before the game, I swear I always say to myself, I said, your brother's out there with you. Look at Phil, he right there beside you. Look at DJ, he right there beside you. Look at Dallas, he right there beside you. So we straight no matter what, and that kind of gives me a little bit of confidence too.
You're listening to Bama Brigade on the Sports Flash Media Network.
We're a couple minutes late since Clark wanted to get a little handsy with the equipment here. So we're back. Welcome to our Wednesday, September 28th edition of the Sports Flash Media Network. We got Bama Brigade tonight. Tonight's show, obviously, we'll be discussing college football. I'm joined by my co-hosts, Tyler Shibish and Josh Clackler. Tyler, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great, man. 2 for 2. Seeing if I can make it 3 for 3.
Yeah, the pressure's on, man.
I'm absolutely not going to make it 3 for 3.
I mean, you could. I won't completely rule it out because I never thought you'd go 2-0. I will say it's a bit more challenging because, it's not going to be a blowout game, presumably. So you can't just be like, Bama, a lot of points, and this other team, like a field goal. Clack, how you doing?
I'm great. Ready for some football this weekend. We'll start tomorrow night. We got some good games Thursday and Friday this week. So, yeah, I'm ready for a great weekend of football.
Isn't South Carolina playing tomorrow? Like they moved their game?
Once you get to Wednesday, the week goes by pretty fast. And like you said, there are some good Thursday, Friday games that I'm sure we'll dive into. We're going to start off with some Alabama football, obviously, because it's an Alabama show. I'm going to go ahead and play a clip from Nick Saban that I think kind of transitions well into this discussion that we're going to have today.
One of the things that we're really trying to establish that we talked about before is, to me, everything starts with discipline. We've got to get more players on this team to be able to play winning football even when circumstances, get difficult. One of the terms that I came up with is run hard when it's hard to run, when it gets hard to run. And I think some of the younger guys on the team, it's hot, you get tired, not used to that many reps, but we need those reps so we can practice until we can't get it wrong, not just till we get it right. And I don't care if it's how you do flex, I don't care if it's how you run across the field, how you do karaoke, how you do high knee pumps, how you do up downs. If you don't respect that enough to do it right when you know that's the right way to do it, how are you going to be trusted in the game to do what you're supposed to do? Because I think discipline is a mindset that's a part of who you are.
I think that video goes to talk about stuff we've kind of talked about, like especially on Twitter and stuff. Like, Joe, you had kind of mentioned a few weeks ago about why was Eli Ricks not out there. I think, like he says in that video, if you're not doing what you're supposed to do in practice, no matter how good you are, you're not going to be out there. And I think that's kind of a lesson that he's really taught these guys, and I think that's why we were not seeing Eli Ricks out at first. And I think that video there just goes to explain a lot.
Yeah, and specifically in that video, Nick Saban brings up, the younger players kind of pushing through adversity and growing as the season goes on. How do we feel like these young guys are coming along after the first couple of games? It was a bit dicey. I think a lot of them played well against Vanderbilt. So how do you guys think that our younger guys are coming along?
I agree. I think it took a few games. I think especially Saturday we saw Ja'Cory Brooks getting in action. We saw the receivers finally getting the touches that they should have been getting week 2, week 3, against Texas and stuff. I think it just took a few games. And sometimes it just takes a few games to gel and to get your feet off the ground. I think that was the case this year, which just took a few games. But we were seeing, Bill O'Brien called a really good game on Saturday. And I think
Tuesday. We didn't play on Tuesday.
I think that we saw – I still think Bill O'Brien's play calling can be atrocious at times. But I think we saw that a lot of it, in my opinion, and we'll get into this a little bit when we talk about the Bama game. I think a lot of I do think it's kind of a 50-50 situation where the offensive problem is Bill O'Brien, but it's also execution. Like some of it was just pure execution. Offensive line not blocking, not giving Bryce enough time, receivers not running the correct routes and getting open. They finally did that and played a complete game on Saturday. I think it looked a lot better.
Yeah, and they kind of talked about it, and they've been talking about it for a while. Like one of the biggest things is just Bryce getting chemistry down with like Jermaine Burton and a couple of the other receivers, and you kind of saw that. Like, I don't know if you guys noticed it as well. Jahmyr Gibbs touched the ball like twice. I actually unironically think Bill O'Brien went into this game and was like, it's Vanderbilt. They're a Power 5 team, but they're not good. So they have Power 5 players, but they're not good enough to where we have to worry about losing. Let's just try some stuff out. Let's get creative, see what works, see what doesn't.
I have a question.
I really felt that way watching it.
I want to get y'all's opinion on this. When you look at the offense, you look at the games, especially Texas and Vanderbilt. Is Jahmyr Gibbs better as a receiver or better as a running back? I think he's hands down as better as a receiver.
I was just about to get into that because a friend of mine actually brought up that point. I was talking about Jahmyr Gibbs and how great he's been for us, and he was like, yeah, he's great in the receiving game, but as a true running back, he doesn't really contribute that much.
Well,
and
one thing to remember, and this is I kind of really realized this in the last couple of games, and it's hard. Like it's hard to go to understand this of being an Alabama fan because we're not used to it. We have become a air raid offense almost, not like fully air raid, but when you look at the percentages, we're 75% passing now. So that's easy to see why. And like it seems like Jace McClellan is doing a better job at running back than Jahmyr Gibbs. But Jahmyr Gibbs has been lights out receiving the ball. I don't know what it is. It's like, Najee Harris was a very good receiving back for us, but Jahmyr Gibbs probably has the most receiving yards on the team right now. Jahmyr Gibbs has been our best receiver, and but it's not that he's not a running back. It's that our system is now a pass first system.
I think we benefit. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Yeah.
I was going to say, I think part of the thing, too, is just like offensive line. They've been good in pass protection, but in order to be a good running back, you got to win. And I think, to me, that kind of shows that they're maybe not winning as much in the run game. So, like, you look at Jahmyr Gibbs, and he's not really running receiver routes, per se. Like, he'll run, like, some, but he's not, like, running a receiver tree. He's running, like, swing passes, wheel routes, the occasional slant, or like stick route. But other than that, like he's not running full on receiver routes. He's just really good in open space. And so to me, I think that means that the reason he looks less impressive as a running back is we kind of try to run it up the gut almost exclusively. And he's not a power running back like that where like Jace McClellan is more so. And I think that's why he's had more success. But I think as a running back, if we played to his strengths and like gave it, more pitches to him, more like outside zones, I think he'd be a little bit more effective pure running.
But I do think that because we've got a Heisman winning quarterback, we have kind of Bill O'Brien's kind of gone to this thing where, there was 2 drives I watched Saturday, but 2 straight drives. I think we passed like 7 or 8 straight times. That's not something we're used to seeing from Alabama football team. Usually it's a mix it up. Until Lane Kiffin got here, Lane Kiffin changed the culture at Alabama, I think. I firmly believe Lane Kiffin changed the culture and changed Nick Saban's whole –
Tua did too.
Well, so did Tua, but I think it all started when Lane Kiffin came in. It changed the whole Nick Saban mindset on offense and thus changing it all over college football.
Well,
we've become more of a passing team.
That's kind of what I was saying, though, is like it seems almost like they wanted to work on passing concepts and they wanted to get Bryce Young some chemistry with some of his receivers going into this game because, like I said, in my opinion, I know it sounds dumb, but they knew they were going to beat Vanderbilt. I know a Nick Saban team would never say, yeah, we knew we were going to beat this team because anything can happen, but they knew they were going to beat Vanderbilt by a good margin. So why, run it to Jahmyr Gibbs when that's going to work against pretty much every team in the league? Why not try to work on different concepts? Why not try to get Bryce Young more in step with Jermaine Burton, stuff like that? So I think to me that was a big part of it.
I think
as critical as I've been of Bill O'Brien and Alabama offense, the one area that I think that they've done a good job in is using Gibbs as a receiver because he's not a big guy. You talked about it, Tyler. You want to get him out in space as much as you can. If that's Dinkin and Duncan, Gibbs is the type of player that's going to be a difference maker when you play assuming you play Georgia or some of these tough games we're about to have, that's your guy. That's gonna confuse the hell out of these SEC defenses. You need a player like that. That's what you call an X factor. And I've liked what I've seen from Jace McClellan and Trey Sanders. If you want somebody to run it up the middle or run it between the tackles, those two are your guys. I like what they're doing with Gibbs. I'm perfectly fine with it, and I expect them to kind of get these other receivers more involved. We saw it last week, a couple more throws downfield. So I think the direction they're going in this year, throwing the ball more, is something that is going to benefit them in the long run, because I think last year we kind of got caught up in this, we don't have a true running back. Like, we have Brian Robinson, but he's not the best. I mean, he's a tough, hell of a player, but I like our running backs a lot more this year. And not to kind of get too sidetracked, but I think our running backs are going to allow us to get the better of Georgia when we play them.
Well, I'll tell you, here's the biggest difference, and I think in our offense and Vandy in the game against Vandy and then the games before that, is something that Bryce Young said last week or whenever. Bryce Young does better when he wants to go up tempo. We had not gone up tempo until last week. We go up tempo. I was watching the game with the play clock a lot. The first 3 games, especially against Texas, we were getting the play clock to like 3 seconds and then snapping. And when you're getting the play clock that low, the defense is ready to go. We finally were getting up tempo. We're not allowing them to further set up their defense.
I think Texas was tough because we were on the road and that stadium was packed. But I do agree with what you're saying about the up tempo. I love the up tempo. I love the RPO. I mean, you've got some incredible athletes on that offense, some very fast athletes, and that's going to be your best friend. You need to utilize that as much as possible. You don't need to slow the game down, running shotgun runs on 4th and 1, like up the middle. Like, you just need to go, and have these defensive lines just completely gassed and out of breath.
Well, I think if we're going to run the RPOs and run the tempo and running things that we did on Saturday, we can afford to line up from shotgun on 3rd and 4th and 1. I'm okay with it then. Because when you don't know what's coming, but it's like so many times, like in the Texas game, they knew what was coming. Well, it's going to be a handoff. We're going to go up the middle. They knew what was coming. But when we're mixing it up and you don't know what's coming, as long as Bryce can get the ball off and as long as you give Bryce a few seconds, we're going to be fine.
The shotgun RPO would be incredible. It's just the shotgun run up the middle that I have an issue with. Even if you're going to do – like if you did an RPO and it's like 3rd and short and you're in shotgun – you have so many options there, because if the defensive end crashes down, Bryce just pitches it to Gibbs, and Gibbs is fast enough to get like 20 yards. And if the defensive end stays home, Bryce takes it around the end and rushes it. I mean, there's so many options there to use. I mean, that's why it's called RPO. I might have just completely mixed that up, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, one other thing too, talking about like running backs specifically, I know you said you like where we're at this year better than like last year, even though Brian Robinson was good. I think you look at Alabama in the last 5 or so years, and the times that they've been most effective in the run game is when they have 2 running backs that complement each other well, right? Like Gibbs and now Jace McClellan. But in the past, you had, Bo Scarborough and Damian Harris, and then it was Josh Jacobs and Damian Harris, then it was Najee and Brian Robinson. The one year that our run game wasn't that great was when it was just Brian Robinson, right? So being able to have 2 running backs that do something different and like both effectively and like have their own uses is really good. And like I remember, for example, the Damian Harris, Josh Jacobs years, like Josh Jacobs was the better running back. He wasn't the starter, but in my opinion, he was the better running back. Anytime he was in, he would make something happen. So right. I think having multiple threats like that.
We're not.
The key word is dynamic.
I agree.
Our running backs are far more dynamic than they were last year. And I mean, we had the same running backs, but I think, these guys are getting older and they're kind of growing into the system and they're kind of figuring out their strengths and weaknesses a little bit more. And so I think we're doing a better job utilizing them.
I agree. It's just, sometimes I do feel like we need to run the ball a little more but at the same time, we do have a Heisman winning quarterback. So
Yeah.
You know, it's all about if his receivers do what they're supposed to do. The problem has never been Bryce. The problem is the receivers actually doing what they're supposed to do. And I think they're starting to get into that rhythm finally. It just took a few games. I mean, if you go back and look at the game, hold on, before we move on, go back and look at the game, the opening game against Miami last year. J-Mo had, I think, 3 or 4 drops. But towards the season, J-Mo got a lot better and probably should have won the Biletnikoff Award. So, yeah. I mean, it seems like it's taking our receivers 3 and 4 games to get going. Once they get going, we're fine. I think that's how it's been this year.
One thing that's kind of interesting to me, especially about like wide receiver this year, is the young talent. Where like last year, outside of JoJo Earl, everyone else kind of disappointed, right? Like you didn't have any true freshmen step in besides Earl, to my knowledge. Am I forgetting anyone huge? I mean, I know Ajay Hall kind of crashed and burned. Corey Brooks. Was he a freshman last year?
Got better.
Okay, yeah. So, but anyway, my point is Nick Saban gave a list of players, like young players specifically, that he thinks have already like got it, right? Like bought into the system, know what they're supposed to do. And there was 3 wide receivers on that list that were true freshmen. I mean, he cited Kendrick Law, Isaiah Bond, and Kobe Prentice.
I'm really happy with what Kobe Prentice has done. And then, you know, we are very young in receiving core. I mean, we lost J-Mo, Mechie, and Slade. So, I mean, we're young, and it's going to take, you know, I've always said that, you know, you can practice for 3 or 4 years and you're still going to be rusty in your first few games because it's a totally different experience. I think we're so young. It just took a few games, and then, you know, having an opening game or second game at Texas really helped. I do think Saturday is going to be tough just simply because it's a road environment. Our last 3 road environments that we've been in, 3 of our last 4 have been struggles at Auburn, Texas A&M, and Texas. You know,
I can't wait to go down 7-0 and hear Clack talk about how Nick Saban can't coach on the road.
Whatever.
You haven't told us about your experience at the game. You were there this weekend.
It was fun. Didn't
Just
drink
fun?
as much as I wanted to.
Somehow I don't believe that.
Yeah,
But
I saw the text. One thing I did want to say too, real quick before we move on. The reason I brought up all those receivers, I think it's kind of interesting that Isaiah Bond specifically was the one that stuck out to me, because in my opinion, he's kind of struggled when he's out there. I mean, he's had more drops than I think he's had catches at this point. I mean, this is not against him. Like, obviously, he's really young, and I expect him to make mistakes. Like, I'm not holding him to this saying like, oh, he's a bust. But I think that contrasted to last year, where we had a young freshman go out there, have a few drops, and just completely spiral. Nick Saban said that, yeah, he's getting out there despite his drops. He's still doing the right thing in practice every day. He's still trying. He's showing up. He's not letting it get to him. And so I'm really excited about that we have like a young crop of guys like that seem more willing to put in the work than they did last year. So.
We're about to completely run the gauntlet here. I don't know why this is the first time in a pretty much maybe all year, not all year, I'll say a couple weeks that I take a look at the schedule. This week we're at Arkansas, number 20 ranked Arkansas, so this is going to be a tough game. And then we host number 17 A&M, and then we're at number 8 Tennessee. And then we play Mississippi State, LSU, Ole Miss, who's 14. We have a cupcake team, Austin Peay. What?
Literally everybody knew the schedule.
What'd you say?
I think literally everyone knows the schedule.
I know. I'm just going through it. I know you're a little slow, so I figured you would benefit from it. My whole point that I'm trying to make here is we're going to find a lot about this team in the next couple of weeks against Arkansas, A&M, and Tennessee. If we can make it out with 3 wins, I feel really good about our chances.
It was funny that you said that, because I literally said in the group on Saturday, and we'll get into this in just a second, I said Tennessee very well can beat us because it's at home and they're playing very good football right now. And
No, you said Tennessee will beat us.
You said Tennessee will beat us, which is different.
I mean, when's the last time we went undefeated other than the COVID year?
I'm just like, okay, this might be a hot take. I'm not particularly worried about any of these teams. Everyone's hyping up Arkansas this week. I think Arkansas just lost to a bad A&M team. And, I mean, I'll get into it later, but Arkansas has the 126th ranked pass defense in college football right now. There's 5 teams that are worse. And interestingly enough, you know who's one of those 5 teams and the only Power 5 team worse than them? Number 8, Tennessee. No, number 8 Tennessee is the only Power 5 team that was ranked below Arkansas in pass yards per game. So we have the Heisman quarterback. Neither of these teams scare me as much as they probably should. And I mean, who knows what'll happen any given Saturday, right? But I think those are both favorable matchups for us. And like you look at Tennessee, right? They were going toe to toe with Florida, right? And I don't think Florida is that great this year. And so I don't know. I'm just A&M is kind of scary because they have like that weird cult vibe going on, but like not football scary. Their school's just scary. I just don't think that they're that impressive. Although Max Johnson, I mean, has been playing better than Haynes King, so who knows? And oh gosh, why can't I think of his name? Anais Smith. He's good, but like
he's out though for the rest of the year.
Is he? Oh, I must have missed that. So then, okay. Yeah.
So back to the game this weekend.
Yes.
Are we ready? Do we want to make our picks on Bama?
I think we're already
Absolutely.
talking about Bama, so we might as well just go ahead and finish by talking about the game and kind of give our picks as well.
So
Tyler, you've been 3-2 straight.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'll lead it off. I think it's going to be Bama 45-14, which, like I said, a lot of people are going to take issue with that, which I was kind of smiling when you were like, oh, yeah, it's going to be a close game. Like I said, Arkansas just is not a good pass defense team. And I have not ever really been sold on KJ Jefferson. I don't know why. I'm just a hater of KJ Jefferson. Every time he plays against Alabama, he doesn't look that great. He doesn't have Treylon Burks ain't walking out there this year to like last year. The only reason that they did anything against us was like he would huck it up to Treylon Burks and Treylon Burks would catch everything. That's why I was a big fan of Treylon Burks in the draft. But he ain't walking out there. And so I don't know. I'm not sold on Arkansas. They just lost to a team which, in my opinion, is a worse team than them. I don't know. And like I said, 126 out of 131 teams that qualify for pass defense. I think Bryce Young's going to have an absolute field day. And I think our defense has been really solid this year. And I think that they'll be able to contain KJ Jefferson. 45-14.
I agree with you. I think everybody's expecting us to come out tight in this game, but I think we come out and we score pretty quickly. So score-wise, I'll probably go 45-17. So Arkansas
Price is right.
Yeah, I guess so. Arkansas's got some athletes. I mean, KJ Jefferson's decent. He's hard to tackle and bring down. Raheem Sanders is great. They have another receiver, Matt Landers, who I believe played at Georgia for a little bit. They've got athletes, so I think they'll be able to score. But I do think that, like you said, we have the Heisman quarterback from last year. We have all these athletes that we brought up earlier. I think people are kind of underestimating Alabama, which sounds weird because we're Alabama, but I don't think this game is going to be as close as people might say it is, and that's why we see the spread is at 16.5 right now.
I'm gonna go. I think Bama covers, but I don't think it's as bad as y'all think. I think it'll be 38.
If they go ahead, sorry.
The spread is 16.5. Y'all both went for 20. Y'all both went way over that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go 38-21 Bama.
Okay, so we all feel pretty comfortable about the game.
Yes.
I think it'll be a close first half. I think Bama will pull away late.
It sounds about like I don't know if you guys have had a chance to see the Heisman odds. I guess I want to say moving away from Alabama, but for the Heisman odds, obviously you've got Stroud at 1, you've got Bryce Young at 2, and then Caleb Williams. Alabama has 3 players in the top 15. Young at 2, Anderson at 10, and then Gibbs at 11. What do you guys think about this list, the way it's set up? I'm not a big fan of Caleb Williams and Hendon Hooker being as high as they are, but I can kind of see why.
I would put Hendon Hooker at 3. I would put Bryce. I would go Bryce at 1, CJ 2, Hendon Hooker at 3, Stetson Bennett at 4. What I would do.
I don't know. I don't hate the top. I don't hate the top 3. I mean, Caleb Williams is kind of it's a Pac-12 guy playing in a Pac-12 conference, playing against other Pac-12 teams. So, yeah, they're like USC has kind of looked real good in most of their games. I think that CJ Stroud
Struggled against
probably
Oregon
ends up.
State.
What'd you say?
They struggled against Oregon State.
That's fair. Yeah, I think CJ Stroud probably ends up winning it just because, in my opinion, it's going to be a two-person race at the end between Bryce Young and CJ Stroud, and it's going to be close enough where they can't justify giving it to Bryce Young 2 years in a row. That's just how I see it coming down, unless CJ Stroud has like one or two real stinkers of a game. I kind of agree. Like Hendon Hooker, he's been good, but I think it's just kind of the hype of Tennessee being good for the first time in a while is carrying him more than actual.
I don't think Anthony Richardson and Ukulele should be on the list.
Ukulele.
Whatever you call it.
Tyler can say it. I've heard him say it before.
Whatever. I don't think Ukulele and Richardson should be on the list. That's a hard one to say. I don't think they should be on the list.
I think a lot of these players will, either move up or down based off of the schedule. When we played Tennessee, if Hendon Hooker has a great game, obviously he's going to move up that list. And if he plays horribly, he's probably going to drop. And then for Stroud, they have some tough games coming up they have to play Michigan. Michigan's defense is always tough. They have to play Penn State on the road. Penn State's got a pretty solid defense this year. So if he comes out on the other side of those games and he does well on them, then, ultimately, he'll probably win the Heisman because you said there is Heisman fatigue. So I doubt that they'd be willing to take Bryce unless one of those other guys like Stroud kind of has a poor second half against some better teams.
Do you want to hear my real quick, maybe not so hot take? The most important game for CJ Stroud, in my opinion, is against Iowa. Iowa's defense has been really good, and Iowa's upset Ohio State in the past when they've been looking unstoppable. I think that if he
Iowa sucks. Iowa cannot
offensively. No. Okay, I'm not saying Iowa's going to win. I'm saying that is going to be a game, in my opinion, that CJ Stroud might have a hard time putting up great numbers. So if Ohio State wins, but like CJ Stroud doesn't look good against a bad Iowa team, I could see that really hurting his offense.
Iowa has a reputation for having this tough defense, but I don't necessarily buy into that. I think their defense is solid. I don't think it's anything crazy, though. I think, Stroud will have tougher matchups against Michigan and Penn State, but I don't know. That's for coming from somebody who hates Iowa.
You know what the most exciting part about Iowa is? One of their best players is a white cornerback. The last time there was a white cornerback in the NFL was 2002, Jason Sehorn.
Not to bring race into this, but I had no idea that was even a thing anymore.
No. It's super interesting.
It is interesting. Like you never see it anymore, so I didn't even know that.
And it's not something you think about. But yeah, 2003 was the last time for the St. Louis Rams, Jason Sehorn.
Well, I heard he's a real grinder, lunch pill type of guy. First one in, last one out. So.
Okay, so anyway, guys, so looking at the games this weekend, first of all, a really good one in the SEC. 2 undefeated teams, Kentucky at Ole Miss. 2 undefeated teams, 2 teams that have really gotten better.
This is insane to me. Not to interrupt you, but the spread on this game is ridiculous. I feel
How is it ridiculous? Like, what?
I had to do a double take on this game because Ole Miss offensively has
Ole Miss. You said
ukulele.
You could say, you said DJ Ukulele, so I don't want to hear this. I think we're overvaluing Ole Miss and we're undervaluing Kentucky, who has been doing well offensively. With Will Levis is one of the best quarterbacks in the country. I'd say he's top 5. Case could be made for top 3. I'm a big Will Levis fan. And then what's kind of getting swept on the radar is they've been without their running back, Chris Rodriguez, for the first couple games of the year. He's back this week. And he's a very good running back, one of the better running backs in the SEC this year. So when I look at this game, I see Ole Miss is favored by 6.5 points. It just blows my mind away. Obviously, with this little rant, I'm going to go ahead and tell you guys, I'm going to take Kentucky money line in this game. I'm not buying the Lane Kiffin offense and all the shenanigans that he has this year. And Stoops is probably my second favorite coach in the SEC. So whatever Kiffin's going to throw out, Saban. Obviously a bias. Whatever Kiffin throws at Stoops, I think they'll be ready. And I think this game might be a little bit close, but I think Kentucky wins for sure. And for the order, we'll go me, then Clack, then Tyler, just for confusion purposes.
Okay, thanks for confusing me, Joe.
And you're easily confusable, so
I'm gonna go Ole Miss. I think Ole Miss wins this one. I'll go Ole Miss money line. I think the Ole Miss offense and the fact that it's at Ole Miss is a little too much. I've kind of gone back and forth on this one as we sat here and looked at it, but I just think Ole Miss, Zach Evans, Jackson Dart, just a little too much for Kentucky to handle. I don't know what Will Levis is going to do on the road. I think Ole Miss is finally going to have that crowd that Lane Kiffin's been wanting for weeks, and I think Ole Miss gets a slight. I'm going to go Ole Miss money line.
I will say I forgot that they had Zach Evans, so that's definitely something that I probably should have taken into consideration.
You made your pick now, so.
No, I'm not pulling a clock and changing halfway through. I'm still going with my team. I'm not a Jackson Dart believer.
Tyler.
Yeah, I think it's maybe a little bit of a hot take, but I think Florida is kind of comparable to Ole Miss here this season, which, record-wise they're not, but also Florida's played some better teams so far. I think Florida and Ole Miss are comparable. Kentucky handled Florida pretty easily in the Swamp. So I think that them going to Old Mississippi is not going to bother them.
Not New Mississippi.
Yeah,
same old
Mississippi. No, I'm going to pick. I'll pick Kentucky -6.5 to cover. I think they win by a touchdown at least. Probably, I'd say 10 points, a touchdown and a field goal.
You should take a money line then.
Is that how it works? Money line better than taking them to cover, like the spread, because they're
money line just means you're picking them to win.
Right, exactly. So I thought picking them.
I mean, no, it would be
7 points is better.
It would be safer to do what you're doing. I'm just
Wait, no, okay. Actually, explain gambling to me live on the air. Why would it be safer to pick the team to win by 7 points than
because as long as they can still lose the game, Kentucky can lose by 3 and you'd still.
Oh, you're so right. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I was thinking
what was your pick, Tyler? What was your pick?
No, I was saying that Kentucky's going to win by at least 7. That's
why I was confused why you were saying that. And then
you can't. You would be better to pick Kentucky money line because they would be plus in the money line. They would be plus like 200 or so in the money line, so you'd be better to pick Kentucky money line, honestly, if you think they're going to win.
I don't think either one of us or any of us are in states that we can use books, so this is all kind of just
my brain is just doing the dial-up noise right now. It's okay. I'm picking Kentucky.
So Tyler, you're going Kentucky money line.
Yeah, whatever. Whatever. I'll tell you who's going to win by how much. I don't care about gambling.
Tyler's a score prediction guy.
Yeah.
So here's another good matchup. We just talked about this team. We talked about both of these teams. Michigan, number 4, 10.5 point favorites at Iowa. Joe?
They're going to crush Iowa. I think Michigan this week had trouble with the feisty Maryland team, but Iowa's offense is essentially non-existent. And we saw Michigan – I think the Michigan running back, Blake Corum, had like 200 yards and 4 touchdowns last week. So I don't expect his numbers to be that great this week, but I still think they win pretty comfortably. So I'll take Michigan to cover.
This one, I don't know. I want to pick Iowa. I really want to pick Iowa in an upset, but I can't do it. Michigan's going to cover.
Yeah, I mean, Iowa just can't score. And so I don't think that they're really in
water's wet.
Exactly. And, I'm not a huge Michigan believer. I don't think they're going to end in the playoffs, but they're good enough to beat Iowa. So I'm picking Michigan to cover.
Another good one. This is 2 teams that have really kind of surprised me this season. One team woulda, coulda, shoulda won last week. One team's undefeated still, surprisingly. Number 22, Wake Forest, goes to Doak Campbell, playing Florida State, who
Tyler's raising his hand.
Yeah. I want to butt in real quick. So the reason I understand my mistake earlier. I understand how gambling works.
You're learning.
The way that it was written on our handy dandy Google document, which I'm not supposed to reference, had -6.5. I was assuming that they was all just for the first team listed, not.
Oh yeah, no, I was.
So
confused
I
too.
saw Kentucky first, and then -6.5, which is why I was saying, oh, Kentucky. I thought Kentucky was favored by 6.5. That was the confusion.
You're good. I copied that from the
Okay.
internet, so blame the internet.
No, that was my confusion here. I was thinking.
What
it was
internet
C++.
do you copy these from? Because you did not have any of the odds right. Anyway, we'll change. Anyway, we'll get on that later.
Any of the what did you just say?
Nothing. We'll get into that later. Wake Forest at internet.
At internet, we're fighting the whole internet.
Wake. What?
How do you use this whole ukulele I saw on the internet?
Wake Forest is fighting the what now?
Wake Forest at Florida State.
The Florida State ukuleles.
Florida State -7.
Whoa,
Somebody make
I go first. What are you trying to steal my thunder? I feel the same way about this game than I feel about the last game. I think whether do we know if this game's actually going to be played at that location? I haven't heard anything yet, but obviously with the hurricane stuff,
We do not.
it'd be tough for them to play a game there. So I'll be interested to see how much weather plays a factor into that, because if the game's moved and it's not being played at Tallahassee, then I think that would drastically shift the odds for State not being at home.
According
But I'm
to
just gonna
2 hours ago, Florida State is confident in safely hosting / playing Wake Forest in Tallahassee.
Okay, so I think that does factor into the game, but I'm going to kind of just ignore logic like I typically do, and I'm going to go with my gut. I mean, we saw Wake Forest with an offensive explosion last week against Clemson. They didn't win the game. Clemson squeaked it out, but I think that Clemson has a better defense than Florida State does, and Wake Forest was still able to score a lot of points. So I see them scoring a lot of points this week, and I'm going to just kind of double down on my money lines, and I'm going to take Wake Forest money line.
I'm gonna go with Joe on this one. I'm gonna Wake Forest money line.
I mean, Sam Hartman is
Rephrase. Pause. I'm gonna go Wake Forest money line.
yeah. So
What
you
you
just said
said.
you had to put some extra emphasis on it.
Yeah.
Well,
On the
I,
internet.
for one, am going to go Wake Forest money line. Hold up. Wait a second.
Wait, no. Let me change
I'm
mine.
going
I'm
Wake
going
Forest
Wake Forest
money
money line.
Okay.
I wasn't too impressed last week with DJ Ukulele against this Wake
Okay,
Forest
you did-
defense.
No,
so-
Tyler, who are you
I'm in
picking?
I was being serious. I'm in agreement. We're all in agreement. Wake Forest money line. Florida
wow.
State's been fine. They did okay against LSU, but I
Should've
think Wake
lost
Forest
LSU.
showed that they're.
First time in the history of knowing each other, we've all agreed on something. Now,
I don't think that's true, but
Finally.
carry on.
number 10 NC
I
State at
disagree
the
with
Fighting Ukulele.
Finally, are you excited about this game or something?
No, I meant no. Shut up. Number 10 NC State at the Fighting Ukuleles of Clemson, who is 6.5 point favorites.
Get it together. Come on, act like a professional here.
Whatever.
Is
Tyler.
NC State really number 10?
Yeah, that's kind of wild to me.
That's
A lot
what
of
you
people.
put, so I'm just gonna go with it.
I remember there was one pretty big commentator that picked NC State to make the playoffs too, which I thought was kind of very bold.
I think it was Desmond Howard, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah,
Howard
I think
also
it
has
was.
Pittsburgh.
He had a lot of.
He says some stupid shit, so I wouldn't be surprised.
I got a
Yeah.
high five from him.
Must
so
have
that
been
was
reading
cool.
your tweets, Joe.
Oh, you're funny.
Joe,
I'm gonna make this just simple. I think Clemson covers. I think Ukulele strums his chords on that NC State defense. that sounded better in my head. There we go, Tyler. Oh, Tyler's got a DJ ukulele.
we have gone off the rails.
Yeah, this is a crazy train. Clemson covers.
I don't know. Like, I have not been impressed with.
Clark starts every pick with I don't know. I don't know. Like it's
Have
a
some
moral
confidence in
dilemma.
yourself. Clark.
offense this year,
Stay with your chest.
but it's at Clemson. I don't know. Clemson has somehow got State undefeated. I don't know how they should have lost twice already, but I'm gonna go NC State with the upset.
I'm also gonna. I hate that I'm agreeing with him so much. I'm gonna agree with Clack. every week. This is my hill that
I'm
I'm
just
going to die
I'm
on
not
this year.
trying to be that guy, but there's a reason why you and Clack are flip flopping in the rankings right now.
I know. So, I mean, picking with him, that way we can't flip-flop. But I don't want to be that guy. But every year I have a hill that I can't help but die on. And this year, my hill is that Clemson is not the 5th best team in the nation. They're going to lose a game, and I'm going to be there when it happens. It should have been last week against Wake Forest, but unfortunately it wasn't for us because we all picked Wake Forest, I think. But
Not me.
I don't care.
I got that one right.
To win. NC State money line.
You said you're going to be there. Are you physically going to be there? Or are we
Like
speaking mentally? Okay.
I'm here for it.
Mentally, Clack's not there ever.
So this one, Joe was ranting about a line earlier. This line I do not understand at all. This line should be way higher. Number 18, Oklahoma, coming off of a loss at to Kansas State. Number 18, Oklahoma, 6.5-point favorites at TCU. Oklahoma coming off of a loss at a TCU team who has just been awful the past few years. Haven't really looked that good this year. They barely got by SMU last week. Oklahoma 6.5 at TCU. Joe?
This is tricky because I could see Oklahoma having an offensive explosion bounce back week, but I do think TCU is a decent team. So I'm not going to take them outright to win. Oof, I'm pulling the Clack here. I'm kind of flip-flopping a little bit.
I don't know.
I'm going to go – no. Okay, originally I was going to say TCU. Okay. TCU minus 6.5. I was going to take the points, but I'm just going to –
plus 6.5.
I'm going to say – plus 6.5. I'm going to go Oklahoma money line.
Okay.
I don't think it'll be pretty, but I think they'll have a bounce back week. And
I'm going to go TCU – or I'm going to go Oklahoma to cover. I think Oklahoma covers. I'm going to go Oklahoma by 10, between 10 and 20.
Bruh, I don't want to keep agreeing with you, but I'm also picking Oklahoma to cover. Reason being, K-State is just like their kryptonite for whatever reason. They've lost to K-State the past bunch of years. K-State's always been the team that showed up, even like Lincoln Riley. That was the thorn in Lincoln Riley's heel. So I don't blame Brett Venables. It's just K-State has some weird Jordan hair voodoo going on when they play Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma's going to bounce back in a big way. I'm not a big TCU guy, right? Gary Patterson left, correct? He's no longer the coach.
Yeah, Sonny Dykes is the head coach there.
Yeah, exactly. And they just, I mean, I don't know. Shout out TCU for Jalen Reagor, who is now a Minnesota Viking. Rest in peace. What was the corner's name that we drafted out of TCU?
Jeff Gladney.
Yeah, rest in peace, Jeff Gladney. TCU is going to get stomped. I'm picking Oklahoma to cover.
Back to the SEC. This one's a tricky one, a very tricky one.
You've said that about every single one we've done.
They're all tricky, man.
Number 17, Texas A&M at Mississippi State. Bulldogs, Mississippi State at home in Start Vegas -4. Joe?
I hate ever picking A&M for anything. Their offense, not the best, kind of like Iowa. I'm sure if Iowa and Texas A&M played, it'd be an offensive explosion. I'm being sarcastic. I'll say as good as Mississippi State's offense is, I think we kind of saw LSU expose them a lot. I think they played last week. So I'm going to go A&M money line, play it safe.
I'm going to go with Joe on this one. I'm going to go A&M money line.
Dang it.
Yeah. I'm of two minds. I don't know. No, I'm of two minds. The one mind.
You said it 3 times, so.
Exactly. I was just trying to imitate you, but the third one was for Clark. Inside me, there are 2 wolves, okay? One wolf believes that Mississippi State's offense is good and air raid is good. The other wolf inside of me believes that Mississippi State kind of crumbled the one time they played a good, decent defensive team.
How many wolves are inside of you again?
There's
I'm trying to
two
keep
wolves
together
that are
here.
currently inside of me, and one of them believes that Mississippi State's offense is good. The other one believes that it crumbled at the sight of any pressure. I'm gonna also pick Texas A&M money line, as much as it pains me. And to
I
answer
think
your
those
question about
wolves probably
Iowa-
pain you a lot more being inside of
No,
you.
I mean they're not that bad. To answer your question about Iowa, though, it's kind of like what happens when a stoppable object meets a movable object meets a stoppable force, right? It's just gonna like the universe is gonna explode if those two teams ever play each other.
Well, I think if they play each other, it would just be like a bunch of rocks going up against a bunch of rocks.
So interestingly enough, just a quick break. I want to get your guys' opinion on something. I know this is unprompted,
rocks,
but my buddy was in a sports group chat, or he's in a group chat with his friends, and they're talking about football, and they brought up the question: what do you think the most unlikely score that could physically happen is in football?
5-4.
5-4. I feel like 4-4 would be more odd.
Well, you can't have a final score of 4-4. So
You know, you're right.
Wow, clock with the logic.
My answer, by the way, for anyone keeping track, would be 6-1, because you can technically get a 1-point safety on an extra point conversion. But in order to get,
you're breaking Clack's brain.
I know, but in
here's what
order,
would be funny. Here's what would be funny, guys. Is you have, let's say, Iowa State and Texas A&M playing.
No, stop.
No, let me go. Let me go with my logic. Let me go with this.
I want to hear it. We only have
Let's
3
say
more games.
Iowa and Texas A&M get put in the Outback Bowl, and nobody can score. Well, by the time we get to third overtimes, we're going with 2-point conversions. We could literally have a 4-2 score.
Yeah, I mean, you could have a 4-2 score with 2 safeties. Iowa's already got 2 safeties once this year. There'd be a big old blooming onion of a score in the Outback Bowl.
Anyway, so
all right, LSU, Auburn.
LSU
LSU's
at
favored by
LSU,
9.
or LSU
Or
at
8.5.
Auburn. LSU 8.5. Joe?
You did the Brian Windhorse, like the.
I've got to be probably the only one that kind of likes LSU this year. I like Jaden Daniels. I'm a big Jaden Daniels guy. I think their receivers, even without Butte producing, have been pretty solid. So I'm just going to go – I'm a big money line guy this week. So I'm going to go LSU money line. Auburn, I have no idea who's going to be quarterbacking for them. They somehow won that game last week. That was textbook Auburn finish, and it was almost painful to watch. And I'm not even an Auburn fan or have Missouri fan. So I'm going to go LSU money line.
I'm going to go whoever scores the most points will win. I'm just kidding. I'm going to go.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I think LSU wins, but I think it's going to. I'm going to go Auburn plus 8.5.
You know,
Auburn's
Auburn,
down bad right now.
I was going to say Auburn is collapsing. LSU with Brian Kelly, new coach, never really experienced the Auburn voodoo before. And in my mind, an Auburn that looks like it has nothing left to lose.
Do they have any voodoo left after last week, though?
That's true. I'll pick.
They
You
have.
know,
I bet
I'll be bold. I will
voodoo.
say,
We're talking about voodoo, and we're talking about a team from Louisiana.
right, that's true. You've convinced me. I'm
Completely
picking LSU to cover minus 8.5. I know it's a lot, but I like Jaden Daniels as well. You said that you might be the only person that likes LSU this year. I like LSU this year as well. I also like Jaden Daniels.
I think
And
Jaden Daniels has been good, and then I think their running backs and receivers have been good as well, and their defense is kind of getting things under control.
so I'm picking LSU to cover.
Stanford at Oregon. Oregon, who is 16.5-point favorites.
I will continue to pick Oregon money line until they show me that they can actually cover the damn spread.
It's Stanford. Stanford's not good. I think Oregon covers.
Gotcha. See, I'll pick Stanford to cover, but Oregon's going to win. It'll be by like 14.
That sounds
Now,
about right.
final game of the night. Good one in the Big 12. Oklahoma State at number 9, Oklahoma State at number 16 Baylor, who is 2.5-point favorites. Joe?
I will pound on the table for Baylor until I can't pound on the table anymore. They were dog. They were a dog last week. I think, yeah, they were a road dog last week against Iowa State. I think this week it's the same situation. They're favored by 2.5 at home. I think they win by a lot more than 2.5. So I'm going to take Baylor to cover probably by like 5 or 6 points, honestly.
I'm going to go the Fighting Gundies. I'm going to go the Oklahoma State money line.
Clark, you've got to be someone who hates Mike Gundy. I don't know if there's someone who hates Mike Gundy more than you. And you're going to pick
don't like Mike Gundy. But
you're still going to pick him?
I'm going to pick him because of Spencer Sanders.
Yeah, facts don't care about your feelings, Joseph. That being said, I'm picking Baylor to cover. I like Baylor this year. I thought they had a good, they had a good showing. And I just have kind of liked Baylor since the Matt Rule days. I don't know, something about them. They've been fun to root for. Because they're in that tier of not national championship competing good, but like good enough to where they get disrespected. I don't know. I like Baylor. I think, like you said, they've been kind of disrespected this year, and I'm picking them to cover.
All right. Well, that was all of our 10 picks that we had.
Yeah, we figured we'd make things a little more interesting this week because we only been doing 5 games, and the rankings are pretty close. It's a close battle between Clack and Tyler for that number 2 spot. But thank you, everyone. Since when do you do the outros?
Well,
you
were
think we're in there? Huh?
Talk.
All right.
You're good at that anyway. Talk.
I wouldn't go that far, but thank you everybody who tuned in.
Doing card tricks.
Tyler's doing some card tricks to show off. That was pretty impressive. I'm not gonna lie. Got some good college football games this weekend, and we'll be back on Sunday/Monday. I think Monday to talk some NFL.
Yep. See ya.